Hi everyone. Today we will be learning the last lesson. It is from class 12's syllabus from Flamingo. The last lesson is written by Alphonse Daudet. Now about the writer, he is born in the year 1840. He is a French novelist, short story writer, playwright and poet. The theme of the story, actually the story revolves around the teacher M. Hemmel, who teaches about the importance of education. He also asks to carry pride in one's own language. The setting of the story is during the days of Franco-Prussian War, in which France was defeated by Prussia. The French districts of Alsace and Lorraine have passed into Prussian hands. Now let us discuss the summary of the story. The story starts with a boy named Franz who started very late in the morning for school. The reason of doing so was because he was not prepared on the task of participle given by his teacher M. Hemmel. Thus he thinks of running away so as to avoid school for the day. Rather, he finds the surrounding very beautiful and tempting. The chirping of the birds, the drilling of the Prussian soldiers at the back of the sawmill attracts him more than the rules of participles given by his teacher. However, he collects strength to come over the temptation and hurries to school instead. While going to school, Franz observes a crowd of people in front of the bulletin board, which is in the town hall. He says that it is from this bulletin board that from last 2 years they are getting all the bad news. The bad news that are described are like the lost battles, the draft, the orders of the commanding officer, etc. etc. He does not stop there, but however, this crowd impels him on thinking about the reason behind such gathering. When Franz was hurrying speedily, he heard the blacksmith watcher calling him, saying not to go so fast, and he has plenty of time to reach the school. Though Franz ignored, as he thought he was being made fun of, and reached M. Hemmel's garden in one breath. Franz describes the day to be very silent and still like the Sunday morning, which is very unusual from the other days. He describes that how the other days are noisy with sounds like opening and closing of desk, repetition of lessons in union, and the noise made by the rapping sound of the ruler on the table. Franz finds that all this very strange and thus looks through the window. Because he finds it very strange, so he looks through the window first. He finds that all his friends are sitting in their places and M. Hemmel is walking up and down with his iron ruler under his arm. He becomes more frightened that now everyone is already in and he has to move inside before everyone. But anyways, nothing wrong happened as he was asked very politely by M. Hemmel to take the seat. After a while of taking seat, when he got out of fearful mind, he could notice that M. Hemmel is dressed differently. M. Hemmel is wearing a beautiful green coat with frilled shirts and little embroidered black silk cap, which he only used to wear during inspection and prize days. He found here the boy Franz finds everything very unusual. The back benches, which mostly remained vacant, is now occupied. Few people like old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, etc., they are seated at the back benches, and they are all in a very sad mood. Hauser is here described to have brought a primer. Let me tell you all, a primer is a book with basic elements, like we can say ABCD book that way, which he keeps open on his knees with his spectacles lying across. Now M. Himmel breaks the silence, speaking very gently and in a sad tone. He says that today he will be teaching the last lesson, as order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. He adds that their new masters will be joining from tomorrow and asks everyone to be very attentive, as today will be their last French lesson. This message startles Franz, and now he comes to know the message that was put up in the bulletin board and the reason behind the crowd. Franz, hearing the words of M. Himmel, starts to feel sorry as how he has wasted his precious times on birds' eggs, going sliding on the Saar. Saar is a river here. He thinks that how he does not know to even write French, and his French lessons will be stopped now at this crucial stage. He explains that how his books of grammar and history of saints, which were all a nuisance and heavy to carry a while ago, became his old friend as soon as he learns the fact that French will be taught no more. Also, he shows his regards towards his teacher, that how he will miss him, and thought of not seeing him from tomorrow makes him forget all the bad memories that is he has experienced for the teacher, that how cranky he was and all this. Franz remarks M. Himmel as poor man, as he is dressed in fine clothes in honor of the last lesson. Franz now comes to know that why the old men of the village are sitting at the back. It is their way of showing respect to the master, who has given his 40 years of faithful service, and also for the country that was theirs no more. His thinking got interrupted when he heard his name being called up for his turn to recite. His turn to recite the rules of participle loud and clear and also without any mistake. But he made mistake with the first words and stood still, scared with his heart beating and not even daring to look up. However, surprisingly, M. Himmel does not scold him and preaches on the importance of learning. He explains that how we have left our learning for tomorrow, and now the time has come that there will be no more French classes. Being Frenchmen, people will not be able to speak and write in French. However, he expresses his remorse in the act of hindrance in the teaching learning process. Here, M. Himmel blames the parents that how they wanted their kids to work on a farm or mills to get money instead of focusing on their studies. Also, he blames himself of asking the children to water his flowers instead of asking them to learn their lessons, and also how he used to give them holiday whenever he went for fishing. He then tells the benefits and beauty of French language and calls it the most logical that they should never forget. He explains that learning one's own language acts like a key to the prison by which they can come out of the slavery system and get their own independence. Finally, he read out the last lesson from a grammar, to which Franz was amazed as he understood every bit of it very clearly. Franz says that how patiently M. Hemmel explained his last lesson to us and how attentively we listened to it, that it entered to our head in one stroke only. After grammar, it was a lesson in writing, and M. Hemmel had new copies for the children with the writing Franz Alsace written on it. These copies here are symbolically represented as the flags, which seem to say that Alsace is a part of France and shows the patriotic feeling of M. Hemmel. The classroom is described unusually to be very quiet, that the sound of only the scratch of pen over the paper could be heard. Even the Beatles were paid no attention as the classroom was totally focusing on their task. Even the pigeons were going very low. So Franz puts a remark that here that will the Germans even influence the pigeons to sing in grammar? Franz, in between of writing, whenever he looked up, he found M. Hemmel looking at everything of the schoolroom as he is fixing everything into his mind. Franz gives a beautiful description of the garden in front of the window, having walnut trees, hope vines, etc. He says that M. Hemmel himself has planted the hope vine, which is twined about the windows to the roof. Franz again refers to him as a poor man. This is the second reference to him as a poor man, that how he has been here in the same place for 40 long years, and now his heart must have broken, as now his sister is packing the trunks and they will be leaving the country the next day only. After the writing, they had a lesson in history, and after that the baby's lesson of letters was conducted. Even the toddlers were very attentive, and with the toddler, old Hauser put on his spectacles and read aloud the letters from his old book. While reading activity, old Hauser was crying as his voice trembled and it was generating a very funny sound. He was sounding so funny that everyone felt like laughing because of the funny sound and crying also because of the sad moment of M. Hemmel's last day of the school. Certainly they heard the church clock struck 12 and then heard the pray and momentarily the trumpets of the Prussian soldiers indicating trumpets of the Prussian indicating their return from drill. Knowing that it is time, M. Hemmel stood up, which Franz described that he looked very pale and tall. Looking tall is again a symbolical representation, which symbolically is referred here to take pride in oneself. He was proud. He started with my friends, but here he stopped. He could not continue to say any more, and turning towards the blackboard, he wrote there in large letters, Viva la France. The meaning of this is long live France. Okay, so finally he leaned against the wall and made a gesture with his hand because he could speak no more. So he made a gesture with his hand that school is dismissed, you may go. So this is the total summary in detail. Please let me know in the comment box that how you liked it. Thank you so much.